I guess to start with with an injury report, and how do you feel like do you feel like everyone's going to be good to go come November 25th?
First of all, it's good to see everybody, and Brian, good to see you,
sir.
Everybody has practiced for the most part, other than Jace Febris. He has not yet been cleared. He, as you know, had surgery in March, and that was a microfracture surgery. At the time, the surgeon was hopeful that he would be cleared by now, but he's still working his way back. I don't know exactly when that's going to be, that he gets to the point where he can play live. He's doing non-contact stuff, but he still has a little ways to go to be cleared. Then we've had a variety of other guys with, typical preseason bumps and bruises, different, ankle, different things. But, we're hopeful that 15 days from now when we open up that everyone will be available, probably with the exception of Jace.
And do you feel like, let me switch to a big picture question. Crazy off season, COVID, all of that. But do you still feel like when you look ahead, that this group, that this group needs to get it done this year and get to all the goals that you have in front of you and want?
Well, that's what we're focused on, Brian. Focused on really capitalizing on the group that we have, the experience that we have, and taking advantage of the opportunity in front of us, knowing that this season probably will be unlike any other, just because of COVID and because of some of the challenges associated with that. But our guys have really embraced the challenges of the preseason. They've worked extremely hard, and now we're getting close to entering the portion of our season where we play games and where things like sacrifice and connectivity and ability to respond to ups and downs are so important.
Hey, Shaka, how are you?
What's up, Cedric? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hey, and past seasons down the stretch, you are not unlike a lot of coaches. You've had to shorten your rotation, but this seems like a great mix of experience, new explosiveness with Greg, and depth. How good a problem is that to have? And number two, how tough are those decisions, having to dole out those precious minutes to guys who have been around for a while who might not get as many minutes?
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge, Cedric, I think right now for our coaching staff is figuring out exactly what the best rotation is for Texas basketball, because certainly there's a lot of different ways you could go. We've got really all of our returning guys at different moments last year helped our team, some certainly more consistently than others. But some of those guys are not the exact same player that they were. So you don't want to base everything on last year. I think at times in my coaching career, I've tried too much to maybe play too many guys or, focus on where the 9th or 10th or 11th man is mentally. But the reality is we got to do the right thing for Texas basketball and our guys. Our guys put so much time and effort into it. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think so far in practice, Cedric, there are some guys that have separated themselves at the top, which is good. And then there's a bunch of guys in the middle that we really need to sort through which of those guys can be most effective helping us win in the game, which obviously we're 15 days away from getting a chance to test that out.
And real quick, on a personal note, not speaking for John High, Mike Hart, or Jeff Howe, but you left the follically challenged universe, and we're not happy about that. But could you tell us about the do?
I was wondering who was going to ask me that. Well, I'm sure, Cedric, I will be back sometime soon to join you guys in the club of bald men. But I haven't. I grew my hair, during the quarantine, and my family asked me to keep it for a while, but we'll see how that goes. A lot of people mentioned to me, they thought, well, you had to be bald because you didn't have any hair. I've cut my own hair. My uncle got me some clippers when I was in 7th grade, and I've cut my hair ever since then. And so I just was in the habit in coaching of cutting it about once a week. And like a lot of things during the quarantine, we changed certain habits.
John, hi. Go ahead, please, sir.
Am I unmuted? Oh, yeah, I'm glad Sid asked you about the hair because I didn't know who you were when you stood up there. Coach, what did you learn about your team from last year, and what excites you about them this year? And is Greg Brown as advertised?
Well, we're excited about, number one, the experience that we have coming back from last year. We talk a lot as a team about the fact that when you have hard-won wisdom as a basketball player that's been through twists and turns in the Big 12, now it's incumbent upon you and your teammates and the coaching staff to take advantage of that. Because it's one thing to have experience, it's another thing to go out there and utilize it. But that's exciting, just knowing that those guys have been through those wars and won some of them and lost some of them. I think sometimes part of becoming a winning, a highly successful team is going through times where, you do have heartbreaking games and learning from those. So that's exciting. Our guys' work ethic has been really exciting. They were away from campus for about 4.5 months. And that was, a time unlike any that any of us have really experienced in coaching or in playing college basketball, just being away for so long. Some of those guys literally didn't have a gym that they could get into. But I've just been really pleased with, since they got back on campus in mid-July, their willingness and dedication to hitting the ground running. Sometimes when you're away from something for a while, it's hard to kind of get back to where you were, but those guys have done a terrific job with that. You asked about Greg. He immediately makes our team more athletic, more dynamic on the glass and in transition. Like a lot of freshmen, or like all freshmen, he's got quite a few things to learn and quite a few areas to continue to improve in. But that's the exciting thing for him, is his potential is almost limitless. And really for us, it's just about racing against time to get him as ready as we can for the game one, and then trying to improve him each game from there. What I've learned from coaching Jared Allen and Mo Bamba and Jackson Hayes, guys like that, is, if things go the way they should for that player, they're going to be completely different as a player in game, say, number 15 than they were in game one. So excited about that progression for Greg. He's worked really hard. He's been a good teammate, and really happy to have him here.
Dustin McComas, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Shaka, you mentioned some guys kind of standing out from the pack. You do have so many guys that are returning. Have you noticed anybody specifically that kind of has that clarity you look for, and that he seems to have, kind of figured out, this is how I become more productive, this is how I become more consistent? Has anybody kind of stood out in that regard?
Well, the three guards stand out, more than anyone. And those guys just have a maturity about them in terms of their games. With Jace being out, we don't have a lot of perimeter players, so it's challenging in practice. You can either put those guys against each other, which is a good competition, or like yesterday, we put all three guards together. But then Gerald Liddell is your point guard on the other team, which he actually did a good job of it. So Andrew, Courtney, Matt, those guys have stood out. Jericho Sims, it's great to have him back on the floor. He's playing with a lot of aggressiveness. Kai Jones is probably the guy that has taken the biggest jump from last year, just in terms of his confidence and the way he's moving around out there on the floor.
And I know Sed asked about, the rotations. It's a great thing to have a roster this deep and talented, but also you got to try to figure out which guys to play. With the kind of, weird roster deal now with kind of the eligibility and things like that, do you have conversations with guys about, hey, long-term, would it benefit maybe a redshirt type situation? Because you've got so many guys that have started basketball games and could play. And obviously, that all those guys want to play. Do you have those conversations, or even have you approached any guys about that?
Well, Dustin, we actually had before the NCAA changed that rule. And we had one guy that was planning the red shirt. And, I think there was maybe one other one that was thinking about it. But, with this NCAA rule change, everybody gets a red shirt, even if you play every game and, play 40 minutes a game. So that kind of takes that out of the equation. Certainly, for somebody like Jace, who's been working his way back from knee surgery, it's a real positive thing that he knows that if for whatever reason he's not able to get back in a fast way, that at least he knows he wouldn't lose the year if he only played half the year or whatever. But yeah, the rotation will be a big thing for us to figure out. And again, we've got to do the right thing for University of Texas men's basketball team. That's what, our guys came here to do. That's what I came here to do. And our guys talk a lot about being lost in the present. So in the present, on November 25th or whatever game it is after that, we just need to focus on putting the 5 guys on the court that give Texas the best chance to win in that moment.
Nick Moyle, go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah, Shaka, just, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but just in terms of, I think the roster makeup of this team is so interesting because you have so many guys returning, so many guys that have played together, and then you take one of the best freshmen in the nation and you throw him into the mix. With a guy like Greg joining this team of guys that have played together and know each other, they're friendly, how do you go about integrating him into not just, on the court, but into the program, into the culture from that whole standpoint?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, really this is a challenging year to do that because the summer was cut short. And, typically, especially with him being local, in the spring after his season, after our season, he would have been over here, from time to time and within the rules as a signee, spending time together on what he needed to be doing, preparing. So instead of being over here, we were doing that over Zoom, which is better than nothing. It's not the same as in person, but better than nothing. And then instead of starting summer school the first week of June, we weren't able to get on the court with him until mid-July. So it was a little bit delayed, but that's for everyone around the country. And for Greg, what we've tried to do is just like with other freshmen in the past, be very organized with what areas we want to help him improve, what areas we want to be at the front of his mind in terms of making the adjustment, knowing that, the best Greg Brown is way, way down the road. And, we're probably not going to get a chance to coach that guy because that guy's 26, 27 years old. So we just want to make him the best he can be this year and put in place a series of growth areas for him to focus on as he goes through this season and then moving forward. He's been very, very receptive, trying to help him understand like any kid coming in as a highly ranked guy from high school, that he actually has just as much potential in the defensive end as he has on the offensive end. But that's an adjustment. And again, he's not going to be a finished product on game one. I think once we get into games, that adds even a new urgency, because he'll be, put up against certain things in the game, foul trouble, certain things you just don't see in practice.
And then I just wanted to ask about, Jericho real quick. Obviously, went down with injury last year, but just from, the pictures and videos that we've seen, looks physically like he's put in a lot of work, looks really good. Just where is he at from a physical standpoint? And then mentally, after kind of, the last 3 years, it's been up and down for him. Where is he at, and what are you looking to get from him this year?
Well, he's doing a great job physically. His body is, Jericho is such a violent athlete that I don't think any of us on this call know what it's like to put that type of force into the floor, or to land after being, that high in the air. So that, that's a different feeling for your body, and doing that over and over and over again. And then particularly at that position, the physicality that you see in the Big 12, or even in our practices. But he, by all reports, he seems like he's feeling a lot better than he was. We were really proud of the progress he was making during his junior season before he got hurt. If you look at it statistically, it was night and day in terms of just much more efficient, much more effective. He shot, I believe, 67% from the field last year, which was terrific. I think he was in the top 10 in the country in dunks per game, which is always a high percentage shot. And what we want him to do, what we've asked him to do, is just continue to improve his motor, his multiple efforts, his what we call no dribble finishes, which is catching the ball around the basket and going up without putting it down. He's really gotten better with that. So Jericho's off to a good start, and our guys are excited about the progress he's making.
Craig Way, go ahead, please, sir.
First off, as a follow-up to the words about the hair, the truth as well as the irony is not lost on me that, Shaka, you're still able to grow hair on your head where I can only grow it on my face. That said, my question was similar to Nick's in about the roster makeup and the chemistry type of thing. But I was going to ask you, have you ever, as a head coach or as an assistant coach, ever been a part of a team where every single member was returning? And does it change a little bit in terms of, did anything change in terms of how you dealt with all those guys with every single one of them coming back, let alone with Greg added to the mix?
No, I've not. I mean, I've certainly been part of teams where we had maybe 9 guys or 10 guys even come back. But last year we had 12 scholarship guys, and this year we have 13 with those 12 plus Greg, which is abnormal for any level, but particularly, this level of basketball. I think part of it has to do with the way that, the season ended in college basketball, and obviously a lot of the uncertainty involved in the spring and the summer. But, the real positive of it, Craig, is one of the positives is, you feel good about the fact that guys are having a good experience, and they feel like they're growing, they're improving. Listen, our job certainly is to be as successful as we can be as a basketball team. But my job is also, and I take this very seriously because people did it for me, is to help grow men. And particularly in this day and time, and all the things going on in our world, that's something that is very important to me. It's something that I really appreciate, the fact that I get to be around this group of guys again and the individuals that make up the team again. Andrew Jones, every single day when I see him in the gym, the first thing that I think about is feeling grateful just to be around him and for the incredible growth that he's made, and then also what he's taught all of us. So that's the cool thing about getting a chance to take another lap with these guys, and having the whole group of them back. They get along well with each other, like brothers. They certainly disagree at times, but they really care about each other. And then the interesting thing, to your point, is we can only have 5 of them in the game at any given time. And they know that on one level. On another level, they want to be one of those 5. So, my job is to make sure I figure out what makes the most sense for Texas men's basketball.
The other thing I was going to ask you is how well have they adapted to KT and how that's gone so far since he's been a part of the mix since he joined your staff?
They've adapted really well to KT. I mean, he's one of those guys, if you don't like him, then that means something's wrong with you. He's very easy to get along with. He really cares about the guys, and that's very apparent. But he also, and I think this is a result of being the son of a coach and having been on coaching staffs with so many big-time, high-level coaches. He has high expectations, and he holds the guys to a high standard. But I think the guys appreciate that. So KT and our other new staff members have been welcome additions.
We'll stay on Radio Row. Mr. Harge, go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Shaka, first off, I'm glad everybody's talking about your hair. As a brother that can't grow the hair, make sure you keep growing it as long as you can. We appreciate it. But I want to talk about, you won 5 of your last 6 games last year. You kind of changed the way you were approaching the game and being very, very aggressive. Is that something that you and your staff have talked about and trying to implement? You talked about the athleticism that Greg Brown has brought and the fact that you got a lot of experience on that team. Is that something that you and your staff have talked about and possibly making that your approach this year?
Yeah, it is. I think in general, the word that our guys have heard since they got back this summer, actually before that on Zoom, this offseason, and continuing in practice this month, has been the word violence. And when I say that, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about off the court. I'm talking about on the court. I'm talking about going after the ball with a level of aggressiveness and physicality. I'm talking about plays around the rim. Basketball, certainly at the Big 12 level, is a contact sport. And, we felt like as coaches and as players that last year we didn't play with enough violence. And so that's been a big emphasis. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. But certainly the way that we plan to play this year, we do want to play more aggressively. We want to play to our strengths for sure. I thought our guys did a nice job of that at the end of the year. It's interesting, sometimes it's easier to do that when you kind of feel like your back's against the wall a little bit. And I thought our guys certainly had that feeling and had an aggressiveness about them. And so we're excited about building on that this year.
And I wanted to ask you too, before I let you go, what are your thoughts coming into this season? When you look at the landscape of college basketball, the Big 12 obviously has 5 teams ranked in the top 25, and you guys are right there in the mix with all that experience. What are you feeling when you look across the gym and see all those players on your team?
I'm feeling a lot of things. I mean, it's like I said, it's unlike any other time that we've experienced. I think for everybody, the first thing is trying the best we can to keep everyone safe, and to make sure we adhere to whatever it is that makes the most sense for the health and the players first and foremost, but also everyone else in our program. And I mean, let's be honest, everyone could sit at home and never leave their home, and that maybe would be the safest thing. But we've been through that in the spring. And, the question I think on everyone's mind and across the country is, well, how long do you do that? And, the great thing we have here is I think our sports medicine people, our team lead doctor, Dr. Bray, have led the way and helped us feel as good as we can feel about the plan moving forward and what we need to do. And then from there, it's about making good decisions and, trying to follow the right protocols. And some of it's going to take some good fortune. But that's the first thing that crosses my mind. And then the second thing is just, again, gratitude for getting a chance to be in the gym with these guys, coaching, trying to help them grow as people, as players, because there was a long stretch where we weren't able to be in the gym. We didn't get to play a postseason last year. We guys didn't even get to train very much in the spring. So now being back in the gym, even though it's the dog days of practicing 6 straight weeks for the guys, again, just a sincere appreciation for being together and getting a chance to experience being a college basketball player or coach is something that is at the front of our minds.
I've got 4 more in the queue. If the last 4 of you could each limit to 1 question each so we can speed through and get to all 4 of you. Kirk Bowles, you're up next, please.
Brock Cunningham and Royce Ham had good energy and aggressiveness for you. How do you incorporate, them into your lineup? And you got anybody who can shoot? Had to get that out of the way.
Andrew Jones. He needs to shoot as much as he possibly can. Brock and Royce, I think it's a great question and it's a great point. We really, really need role players. We need guys that aren't afraid to say, hey, this is my role. This is what I do. I love doing it. And I'm going to do it every game, not just this game and then maybe another time down the road. And I think Brock and Royce are 2 prime candidates for that. We've talked a lot about that with them. Those guys, when they're at their best, they're flying around. They're playing with a level of violence about them. It may not be the most technically sound or aesthetically pleasing, but it is pleasing from the standpoint of being violent and being aggressive. That's pleasing, and we need more of that. So I think for those guys, it's a matter of them focusing on being that one play at a time on a consistent basis. And if they're willing and able to do that, then there's certainly a prominent place for them on the floor.
Jeff Howe, go ahead, please.
Hey, Shaka, I wanted to ask you about Coach Hootie and the strength program. And I know, this summer was not what you probably hoped it would be just in terms of time constraints and everything. But how has she been just in terms of getting guys' bodies right from, when you hired her, what you expected the product to look like? And was there anybody that you felt really made significant strides with what they did in strength conditioning in the offseason?
Well, she's been great. It's great having Hootie here. We both were kind of banging our head against the wall mid-March through July because she wasn't able to, work with the guys in person and do what she does. And, as you guys know, for a strength coach, that's actually a more important time than during the season, is that off season. But she did the best she could, communicating with them on a regular basis and sending them plans and, whatever we were able to do under the rules. But it's been great having her here. I think she's made a strong impact on the guys in a lot of ways, and not just on their bodies. Hootie understands what goes into winning. She's been around winning, and so she does a really good job, communicating with the guys about that as well, and helping move us in the right direction in terms of understanding the culture that we want to have. In terms of guys' bodies, I think she's really helped Courtney Ramey. Courtney's a guy who he puts a lot of extra time into his game. As much as anyone on our team, he lives and eats and sleeps basketball. So as you know, that takes a toll on your body. And Hootie's done a great job with Courtney, getting him to buy into some of the different modalities of recovery and just taking care of himself. She's done a nice job with a lot of our other guys as well. But I think the longer she's here, the more of an impact we're going to see from her.
Joe Cook, go ahead, please.
Coach, this is Matt Coleman's 4th year in this program, and last year towards the end you put a lot on his plate. Will we see a similar workload for him? And I guess what expectations do you have for a senior point guard, Matt Coleman, here at Texas?
Well, it's interesting because he actually played our last, however many games it was, with a really, really tender heel on one of his feet. I mean, he couldn't even put any type of pressure on that back part of his foot. So I think you guys probably saw him limping around out there. And I give him a lot of credit. He missed the TCU game at home after injuring his foot in the Iowa State game up there. And because he literally could not go. I mean, he tried. But after that, he played. And I think a less mentally tough, a less driven player would have just sat out, because that's one of those injuries that there's no way to address it other than just rest and let the thing heal. It was interesting, with him being hobbled, we actually adjusted some things and we put the ball a little bit more into Andrew and Courtney's hands. And Matt did a really good job kind of still being able to make plays, even though we had to kind of save him a little bit physically. But expectations for him as a senior is to continue to evolve as a leader. I think if those 3 guys can continue to build their synergy on the floor and their connectivity around winning, they have such different personalities from each other. I don't know if you could find 3 guys that are any more different, but they all care about each other. They respect each other. They want to win. I think the thing that they do when they're at their best is they bring out the good qualities that they have in the other guys. But that doesn't just naturally happen. You have to make it happen. So I've been on Matt pretty aggressively about that. And just I want him his senior year to play with reckless abandon. I want him to play with an urgency, even a desperation, because it is his last year. But he's also at his best when he plays with confidence. So it's blending those things is something that we've spent a lot of time talking about.
Roger Wallace, you have the last question, sir.
Roger, you're on mute.
It's my first Zoom. No manual for this, but at least you've had the luxury of watching the football season kind of evolve. How close are you paying attention and your guys seeing that at the drop of a hat you could lose a game? On the flip side, you get kind of a bubble from the start once the Thanksgiving break starts until mid-January. So how beneficial will that be in trying to keep this thing as normal as possible?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly follow, all the sports that have gone on since the quarantine. Follow the NBA and watched all the things going on there. Obviously, their dynamic was different, being in a bubble. Follow closely the fall sports here. I think those coaches have done a really good job navigating just unfamiliar territory. And for our team, it's a little bit different in that we're an indoor sport. we have to make sure that we stay on top of what makes the most sense to do to keep the guys safe, but also knowing that we can do everything possible to stay safe within our facility, but then when we leave our facility, that time really matters too. When we get into our season, we'll introduce the element of travel, and it looks like following football nationally, not so much here, but nationally, that's where some teams have kind of gotten tripped up. Not saying it's their fault, but some teams have gotten infected. So as we get into that part of the season, Rods, when there's travel, we're just gonna have to do everything possible under our control to stay safe. But our guys have been very aware of everything going on, in the fall sports, and it's definitely something we tried to learn from.